don't think there's a reason not to get going.
Okay.
Everyone's ready. Let me pull up. Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order. Before we get started, let's introduce everyone on this meeting. I'm Sandy Brock. When I call your name, please confirm that you can hear me by verifying that you are present. Jonathan. We can't hear you. Yep. I will move on to Patrick.
Yes.
Okay. Those are the commissioners. And I'm just going to wait till Jonathan kind of.
Can you hear me now?
Perfectly. Thank you very much. We'll introduce the staff. We have Leah, who's our agent, and Jan, who's our conservation assistant. And Leah.
I can hear you.
And Jan.
I can hear you.
Great. And then we'll go through the speakers for 5 Millennium Drive. Nicole Hayes. Nicole is not on here yet. Right, but Michael Shunta is here.
I am here, Sandra. Yeah, I'll text Nicole right now.
Okay, we still got a couple of things before we get going, but thank you. On 100 Westboro Road, we've got Matt here.
Present.
And I'm looking, and we have Mark.
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you. Thank you.
Yep. And again, I'm sorry. I know I've said this 3 times. I need to repeat it 3 times. Asik?
Essek, yeah.
Essek.
Just like it's written. Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you.
This is great, Essek. Usually people can't pronounce my last name, but
I'm stealing your thunder.
This is great.
Yeah, no, it's just, I apologize, but I try.
That's
It's
all
just,
right. Trust me, you can imagine I've gotten it a lot,
Right.
quite a bit. So
yeah. And I hope you understand that if I want to say it right. So
I
Essek,
appreciate it,
Essek.
Sandra. You've got
Don't worry, you're back here 6 or
people every meeting, so
Yeah.
No worries.
If you come back here 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 times, I'll get your name right. I
Oh
promise.
no, we don't want that.
Yeah, I was gonna say all due
No.
respect, maybe for a different project, but
Okay. And then the Blackstone Watershed Collaborative, Stephanie. I did not see Stephanie on yet.
Yeah, she told me she was going to be a little late.
Okay, that's great. So let's keep on going here. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order as extended on June 15th, 2021 and February 12th, 2022. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. If you are using a dial-in by telephone feature, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note that you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals per your cue. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will invite each commissioner by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. After the commissioners have spoken, I will allow public comments to be spoken by participants. Participants must use the raise hand feature by clicking the hand icon on the bottom right of the Zoom menu bar to indicate they would like to speak. If you are using a dial in by telephone feature, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute you when you are called on. Participants who raise their hand will be recognized one at a time by their name and then will be promoted to speak. Public comments will be followed by commission and applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by a roll call vote. As a reminder, the commission is concerned with state and town wetlands and stormwater regulations. Concerns outside of this purview need to be addressed to the appropriate boards. For example, road conditions must be addressed with the select board and traffic concerns must be addressed with the planning board. All right. So
It looks like Nicole Hayes is one of the attendees, so I'm just going to promote her.
okay, great. All right, when she comes up, you can let me know and we'll check in with her in a little bit. Leah, as far as some upfront, what can we take care of before, well, actually the first hearing's continued, but,
Andy, I think it's someone else. So he's
Oh,
got his
okay.
hand raised.
Hello, Chairperson. This is Mark Arnold from Goddard Consulting. I'm here on behalf of Nicole Hayes. She's not
Okay.
able to join tonight's meeting. I'm with Goddard Consulting, wetland scientist, and so I was asked to handle the hearing for the ILRAD for Millennial Drive.
all right, thank you very much. And obviously you can hear us and we can hear you, so thank you. Okay. All right, action items. Leah,
Yeah, if you want to just take them in order, that works perfect.
okay. Starting out with the meeting minutes. If anyone has any comments or questions, and we're actually doing 2 sets of meeting minutes, one from March 1st and one from March 15th. I have no comments or suggestions. If no one else has any other comments, can we have a motion?
Motion to accept the meeting minutes for March 1st and March 15th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Patrick
Yes.
and Jonathan.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. Okay. All right. The minor change request at 100 Westboro Road. Okay. And Leah, do we have the information on that?
Yeah, we received an updated narrative.
Okay.
I'm sure Jan's probably getting it ready for the screen now.
Okay.
These guys also had a couple slides, I think, if they want those on the screen.
Yeah, I did do a quick read through. So, all right. Once Jan is up and ready, who's going to be talking to 100 Westboro Road?
It will be me.
Okay.
Matt Leidner with Civil Design Group, civil engineer representing Pulte Homes of New England.
Okay.
And Mark Mastriani and Essex Petrie from Pulte are here tonight as well. And so I guess let me, if it's okay, I'll just go through my presentation. It's fairly brief, just kind of following up on our meeting on March 14th. And then with the slides here and the narrative, we can always refer to any parts of it should any questions arise, or if you'd like me to go into more detail about anything. But just kind of an overview of where we're at. We were last before you on the 14th of March, and at that time, we were requesting and continuing to request now a minor amendment to the order of conditions for an adjustment and refinement to the approved phasing plan. And we, at the last meeting, we presented our adjusted phasing plan and approach, which we looked at in great detail with Pulte's construction team and from an engineering standpoint, and we believe will result in a much more efficient build out of the project. And so that's what we went through at the last meeting. And at that meeting, the commission had requested that to go along with the updated phasing plan, that we produce a narrative providing the details within each phase of the areas to be disturbed within each given phase, and then the methods by which the areas that will be disturbed will either be temporarily or permanently stabilized as the construction progresses. And so we submitted that narrative on March 25th. And shortly thereafter, on the 28th of March, we went back before the planning board and presented our plan, at which time we were requested to make a few adjustments to it. And so on the 31st of March, so shortly thereafter, we submitted that adjusted phasing plan back to this commission. So we apologize for submitting the information twice. It's just that we did make a few tweaks to it after we met with the planning board. So what's before you tonight is the most up-to-date version of the phasing plan and the narrative. The adjustments that we made based on the March 28th planning board meeting were only to limit. So the planning board wanted us to limit the phase 2, the initial build out of Audrina Lane, to no more than 500 feet, so as not to create a dead end length of more than 500 feet temporarily. Obviously, ultimately it connects through to Brook and then back out to Institute and creates a loop, but they didn't want temporarily to have house lots on more than a 500-foot road. So we scaled back that phase to only include the first 500 feet and the lots along it of Audrina Lane. So fundamentally, it didn't change really what we talked about last time, other than just limiting how much of Audrina Lane was included in that phase. And then also the other adjustments that we made based on the planning board were let me take a step back. We're trying to communicate this phasing on one sheet of the plan set, of the approved plan set. And so the way we had portrayed the phases on that sheet number 27 of the plan set, did not communicate what was our intention all along, which was to finish the build out of Brook Street. So finish the horseshoe, finish the loop before going on to develop the lots along the remainder of Audrina Lane past 500 feet and then along Brook Street. So the intention, as is now portrayed on the phasing plan, is to finish the build out of Brook Street up utilities and up to Binder before commencing development of the lots along that area. So we've adjusted the phase hatches to better communicate that is the intention here. And then also to better communicate the fact that the Institute Road improvements are going to be part of phase 4. So after the Brook Street connection is finished and there is a completed connection from Institute Road, Audrina Lane, all the way back out to Institute Road where Brook Street intersects it. Once that connection is completed, then Pulte will be commencing the Institute Road improvements at that time. So again, it doesn't change what we discussed at the last meeting. It's merely how that information is portrayed on this plan, because we did not communicate it as well as we had intended to, as far as what the intention is here. So really the only change from what we discussed last time was just limiting the first point I mentioned, limiting Audrina Lane, the first 500 feet and the lots along it until the Brook Street connection is finished, and then advancing those subsequent lots along Brook Street. So the updated information, the updated phasing plan we submitted on the 31st of March represents those tweaks that were made based on the planning board meeting. So I think the way I presented that was sort of wordy. So if you have any questions, feel free to stop me either now or afterwards, and I'm happy to try to explain that some more. So, but that's the plan before the commission now. And the narrative that goes along with that phasing plan, which is really what we're here before you tonight to discuss, is the narrative. That's what this commission requested at the last meeting, and that's what we've worked hard on leading up to this meeting. The highlights of that narrative, and I'm happy to go into any specific details or if you have questions to expand upon any part of it. But the highlights are that it conveys Pulte's intention. You know, we heard you loud and clear at the last meeting that your policy is to not expose more than 5 acres at a time unless there's a good reason to, and we can justify that, and we can temporarily or permanently stabilize any areas to get back down to the 5 acres. So the narrative and our intention with it is to convey the fact that as as the construction rolls on throughout the build out of the project, the intention is to keep the disturbed area, exposed area at 5 acres or below 5 acres. However, there are a handful of snapshots in time, as we discussed at the last meeting, where there will be more than 5 acres exposed under this phasing plan. And so the narrative documents as requested where those areas are, how large they are, and why we need to expose more than 5 acres temporarily. And then it also goes through the anticipated timeframes for how long those areas will be exposed before they are temporarily or permanently stabilized. The narrative also goes through what the proposed stabilization measures are for each area. So there's different measures proposed for stabilization, whether it be temporary or permanent, depending on the area. And so we believe that the narrative is exactly what the commission had asked for last time, and provides the information needed in order to hopefully approve the modified phasing plan. And with that, I guess I can turn it back to the commission. And again, happy to go into more detail about any elements of the phasing or the narrative, or answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Leah, on your report, you had made a suggestion about rephrasing one of the special conditions that we had included as in the order of conditions. Can you just go over that real quickly?
Oh, I wasn't suggesting changing the language. I just put the condition that we had for phasing
Okay.
in there as a reference point,
Oh, okay.
just so you guys know what we already said in the order. And then should the minor change be approved, we would send them a new letter that references the new plan.
Okay. Let's go around and I'll do a roll call and get people from the commission, any kind of feedback or questions on this new plan. Let me see, Patrick.
You are muted if you're talking, Patrick.
I was not talking, unfortunately.
Any questions?
I don't think so. I was just kind of comparing the amount of acreage that was disturbed on the two plans from the previous week and this one. It didn't seem significantly different at first glance. So I don't think I have anything at the moment.
All right, thank you. Jonathan.
I'm in a similar boat. It looks pretty similar with minor adjustments, so I don't have any major concerns with the plan, but I'm open to hear what others think as well.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it you know, as far as the my kind of comments and so forth, I don't really have any questions. As far as what the planning board requested, I certainly don't have any, comments or opinion on the first phase. The drawings present what the intention is, and I read through the narrative, and it's fairly straightforward. I mean, like any project of this size, it has to do with the O&M during construction. And so I think as far as the details go, there's sufficient detail here. It's just now it's up to the applicant to execute it. And then Leah, you had one other comment about discussing changing the order of phases to move Institute Road work earlier.
Yeah, they covered that. I just had that as a question as to whether or not that actually changed or not, but they covered that in their
Okay.
presentation.
Gotcha. Is there any other questions or comments?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything further on as far as questions go, yeah, we'll find out once everything, once work begins and we get to see it. As far as this is a request for a minor change. We have the narrative that was requested and we have an updated plan. So if we could have a motion to approve the minor change as indicated, and then the follow-up, as Leah said, is the office will, do a follow-up letter and send it so that it's documented. Anything I missed, Leah?
You got it.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve the minor change for the 100 Westboro Road.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan
Yes.
and Patrick.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, good luck.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Do you want to back up to the 7:15 to read it in and continue? You could do that.
Okay, happy to do that. Okay. All right, 7:15, seeing that it's after that time. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent and application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit to rebuild a portion of an existing walk trail at 5 and 11 Rear Wheeler Road in Grafton. The applicant has requested a continuance to June 14th. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to continue to June 14th.
Second.
We
have a
do
motion.
have
Go ahead.
have Norman Hill here. I'm gonna promote him to talk.
Okay. You're muted, Norm, if you're trying to talk or say anything. Okay. Not getting anything from Norm. I think,
Oh, can you hear me now?
yes.
Sorry about that. I have a technical difficulty here.
Okay.
So, yeah, I really don't, I was just going to be here if you had any questions, but the reason we've asked for a continuance is there's a subdivision just uphill from this trail that has been recently approved. And there's a large pipe exiting the detention basin for that subdivision. It's pointing right at this trail. And Mr. Aberg came to me a few weeks ago and he said, maybe I could get them to extend that pipe under the trail. And that would save the trail from any damage from that outlet pipe. So I thought it was a good idea. So he's going to need a few weeks to approach them, offer them an easement to extend that pipe. They may have to go through some process with you, but I just asked for a couple months. So he's going to try to work that out and get some sort of an agreement with them to do that. And then we can revise our plan and we could greatly simplify our plan.
Okay, that works for us. And so we were already made a motion and had it second. So nothing else, Norm.
No.
We'll do a vote. Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I'm also a yes. The motion carries and
Thank you. Thank you.
hearing is continued.
Thank you.
All right. Any particular next action item, or should we do 5 Millennium Drive?
Yeah, you can do 5 Millennium.
Okay, great. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Grafton Conservation Commission hold a public hearing to act upon an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation at 5 Millennium Drive. Okay. And who is here to discuss that?
Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead, Mark.
Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Chairperson. So this is Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting, or the Wetlands Consulting Company that delineated the wetlands at 5 Millennial Drive, here on behalf of Claremont Companies. So we submitted a revised set of plans dated March 30th, 2022 that reflect all the changes requested by Ecotech with regards to the peer review. And so we believe we have the information provided to the commission to allow the commission to issue an ORAD this evening.
Okay. And so Leah, basically everything has been updated per the
Yep.
consultant.
Peer review comments were addressed. Art did suggest one finding that we say that there is
Okay.
some extensive offsite flagging that doesn't project any buffers onto this site. He didn't review that flagging, and thus
Gotcha.
it is not part of the approval for the ORAD.
And that's a finding, okay. So is there any, just to open it up, if there's anyone from the public that is here to either ask a question or comment on this, please raise your hand and we'll be happy to call on you. And as that goes on, I will ask Patrick, any questions?
No questions.
Jonathan?
No questions.
I also have no questions. And no one has raised their hand. No one is shouting or wildly waving their hands or anything. So we'll do a roll call vote. Excuse me, before that, we'll do a motion. Do I hear a motion for the ANRAD for 5 Millennium Drive?
Motion to close the hearing and issue the ORAD in agreement with the findings.
And also that will add a findings, yeah, with the findings for that. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll do a roll call vote. Patrick? Didn't hear that.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan?
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. What do we have left here? So we have,
another COC that somebody lost the original signature. It never made it to the registry. So we just need a vote to reissue an original for 4 Fieldstone Court.
sounds great. Do I have a motion?
Motion to, I lost it, reissue the certificate of compliance for 4 Fieldstone Court.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call vote. Patrick? I waited just so you were drinking.
Yes.
Jonathan?
Can't do it via thumbs up, right?
Yes.
Jonathan? I
Yes.
am also yes. The motion carries. All right. So the last one, do we want to do the landscape architect for 95 North, or do we want to do the Blackstone Watershed Collaborative?
So for the Blackstone, we're still waiting for Stephanie to hop on. She
Okay.
had another meeting for the same thing in Sutton.
Okay.
So she's hopping on to ours after that. So we can
Okay.
talk about 95 North Street. I sent you guys an email this morning. Jen, the rec director, and I have been through interviews of 2 consultants that responded to our RFP. Our top pick is RDLA. They had more relevant experience, especially with.
So
Oop,
before you
ahead.
get going too far, just for information here, I'm going to recuse myself. We have active jobs with both of these consultants. So even though I think one of them we're doing survey work for, and the other one we've done a lot of different work with. So I'm just going to recuse myself from taking a vote on this and
Sure.
let you kind of finish what you have and let Patrick and Jonathan respond.
Okay. All right. So we did interviews for the two of them. We found that RDLA had more relevant experience. They've done work with municipalities on open space for 20 years. They had a better price. They've also done a lot of invasive removal and boardwalk construction, two things that we are very likely to need on this parcel. They also gathered a lot of information on the parcel just in putting this proposal together, and they really catered their response to the parcel and its history and the family. And yeah, so that was our top pick, but I did send you guys both to take a look at. And if you have any questions, I can answer those. Otherwise, we would need a vote to recommend the select board enter into a contract with RDLA for 95 North Street.
I did read through both of those. Thanks for sending them, Leah. And I got a sense similar to what you were saying. It felt like it was a bit more catered to the items that were asked for and the parcel itself and some of the things that we had talked about possibly doing there. So, and the rest of the proposal seemed a bit more thorough too in certain spots. So, you know, I personally don't have any issue with that recommendation. It seems to make sense to me on the RDLA. But I'll let Jonathan weigh in.
No, I agree with the recommendation. It was more thorough. It was a better proposal in my opinion. So I have no problem with the recommendation. So you just need a vote now?
Correct.
Or do we need to actually make a motion and then vote on it?
Yeah, you're right. Yes, make a motion to recommend the select board. I have it written out for you guys.
Okay. I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board that they enter into a contract with RDLA for 95 North Street, for the 95 North Street RFP.
I will second that, and my vote is yes.
My vote is also a yes. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's almost like we knew what we were doing.
Hey, that means I don't have to come anymore.
Well, we won't have quorum if no one else shows up. So.
True. But nicely done. So we're just kind of hanging out for the Blackstone Watershed Collaborative.
Let me just look at my email.
Yeah, she just sent an email saying she's on the select board meeting. So I just resent our meeting invite. So hopefully she moves over quickly.
Oh, okay. So that's a good sign.
Hopefully she realizes that this is the more important meeting to be on.
Absolutely.
Of course.
I never got that they put them on the same night. I get to miss all the fireworks.
It's okay.
While we wait for her, I just wanted to let you guys know that Jan completed the fundamentals from MACC, I think in record time.
That is impressive.
So she has her certificate, and she's actually being recognized at the select board meeting tonight for that accomplishment.
Very nice.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Got my certificate.
Cool.
Gotta get it framed.
Yeah.
Yep. You need to frame, you need to put that right above the fireplace, you know.
Right behind you.
Yeah, they're actually thinking about kind of expanding that and having like 2 levels and having the option to kind of even do more. Because I chair the training subcommittee for education for MACC. So we're trying to refresh and update all of the content and photos and stuff. So some of it got updated, and we're work in progress getting everything else done.
I think that's a great idea. I've found them so incredibly helpful, especially coming into this with very little experience in this. It's been so helpful. So
Well, that's great. And like right now, there's a single stormwater session, and we're going to actually split it in two to actually have one that kind of an introduction, and then one that's more advanced, because we always seem to have a mix of folks in that class that either have some and know the lingo, and then some people who know nothing. So it just seems like it's hard to hit that right tone of, an introduction versus the people who want to learn more. So probably that one's going to be updated to try to expand it and so forth. But it's a process. Doesn't happen overnight. So,
Good
here we
timing.
go. So, so the next topic is for Blackstone Watershed collaboration. So Stephanie, if you want to chime in, we were just waiting for you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Sorry for the confusion. I was definitely on the select board meeting, and I was like, this isn't working right now. So let me just open that up. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm Stephanie Cavino, and I'm the program manager from the Blackstone Watershed Collaborative. So we are a new group that started in September of last year, and we get together all sorts of different organizations and stakeholders, and are working to improve climate resilience and water quality within the watershed. My PowerPoint is very slowly opening here. Sorry, give me just 1 second. Oh, okay. Do you want me to share my screen, or would you prefer to do it that way?
So, we don't allow attendees to share
Okay.
the screen. So, but Jan will help you and be able to advance. Just let her know.
Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. So I'll give you some context on the watershed if you're not familiar. So the Blackstone Watershed starts all the way up in Worcester and goes all the way down to Pawtucket. It's about 48 miles long. And in that time, it drops nearly 450 feet, which is really important for its industrial history. The whole watershed's about 475 square miles and encompasses 39 communities covering 2 states, both Mass and Rhode Island. And if you look at that upper right smaller map, that's the Blackstone highlighted going into the Narragansett Bay. And as you can see, we're about half of the freshwater input into the bay. The other half is the Taunton watershed to the east there. And in context, it's also about 40 miles long, and it drops about 40 feet instead of 450. So it's really significant, this change in elevation we have. So the next slide here gives some industrial context. We were called America's hardest working river. And that's because on those elevation changes, we were able to dam the river and create these, the first water-powered cotton spinning mill in Pawtucket. And we also created several canals, both sometimes along the river and sometimes in different parts of the river adjacent to it, in order to be able to move goods and services up and down there. Go ahead. So we're a nationally significant river in a lot of different ways. In 1990, we were called the most polluted river in America due to all the toxic sediments that built up behind those dams. And also in 1972, we were home to this program called Operation ZAP, and 10,000 volunteers got together and removed 10,000 tons of trash from the river. This is when we were taking out cars and shopping carts and appliances and all sorts of really large items. And it was actually, to this day, is America's largest one-day regional environmental cleanup. So in 2022, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that it's the 50th anniversary this year of that Zap the Blackstone movement, and also the Clean Water Act, which was also passed in 1972. We also have a really important, go back for just 1 second, sorry. We also have a really important designation here, both in terms of, we have the National Heritage Corridor. So if you're driving on the highway and you see those brown signs for Heritage Corridor, that's this area in green on the right. And it's showing the important history that is in this area as the home of the Industrial Revolution, and also a national park. So we're a little bit different. We're not quite, going into Yellowstone and you're in the park and it's just one big area. But we have these 6 different nodes as elements of the national park. But a lot of folks don't realize they have a national park right in their backyard. So go ahead, the next slide. So we noticed that looking at this watershed, there's a big lack of projects around climate resiliency and water quality, and a lack of funding. And it's not because, government agencies don't like us. It's just that we don't really apply. So on the left is looking at SNEP program. It's the Southeast New England program. And on the right is the Division of Ecological Restoration. And we can see that in the circle there, there's only about 1 project within the past 5 years in each of those funding opportunities. We have one orange one on the left, and then on the right, the purple and yellow. The yellow one on the left is not even in our watershed. It's in the French River. So because of this, the Narragansett Bay Estuary program, we can go to the next slide, decided they were going to change that. And they really wanted to bring attention and resources to this region. And what they found was over 2 years, from 2019 to 2021, they hosted 8 meetings. And they found that while we don't have a lot of capacity in this area, we do have a really strong sense of volunteerism. Sorry if you can hear that cat in the background, my goodness. So they got together, they had 8 meetings, they had nearly 150 people and different organizations and government agencies. And they just asked everybody, how can we help you? How can we work together better and really focus on improving climate resiliency and water quality? So the next slide, we'll see the end result of that was this Blackstone River Watershed Needs Assessment Report. So this is a document through all of that stakeholder outreach. It was an iterative process, and we identified 20 different things that we can do to work together and improve climate resiliency and water quality here. It went all the way from site-specific on-the-ground projects up to watershed-wide capacity building and watershed coordination. So the first of those things was, because we need that capacity and we need someone to help us coordinate, we created this Blackstone Watershed Collaborative. It's hosted at Clark University, and it has 1 full-time staff person, which is me, and I get to manage this and try and bring everybody together. So next slide, we'll see some of those priority action items. So there are 20 altogether. There are 5 here and 5 on the next slide as just examples. Whether it's maintenance of waterways, expanding our bikeway and greenway from Worcester all the way down to Pawtucket. We want to be able to create equitable access to our waterways. So not just identifying where we have gaps of being able to get to the river, which is critical, but also making sure that those areas that have access are really accessible to different folks. If you have mobility challenges, for instance, there are a lot of places where there are really steep banks and it's hard to get to the river and actually use those recreational resources. Water chestnut removal is a really big invasive species that is affecting a lot of our lakes and ponds in the region. We want to be able to manage those. And we know that increased land protection is also important to be able to increase the green space that we have and soak up all of that extra water that we're receiving from climate change and reducing our heat islands. Next slide. Some other additional priority actions include regulations, encouraging regulations and changing regulations that will encourage these cost-effective nature-based solutions. So that can be things like rain gardens, mimicking nature to be able to manage our stormwater, using it as a resource rather than a waste product. Recognizing developers that use these best practices. Creating a green jobs program for green infrastructure maintenance. So green infrastructure, those natural areas, as well as this low impact development, how we're recreating those areas to manage that stormwater. We found that municipalities usually identify maintenance as a critical barrier to implementing green infrastructure. So we want to be able to overcome that. We have a really great water quality monitoring program within this watershed. The Blackstone River Coalition monitors 75 sites throughout the watershed, and they've been doing that for 19 years now. However, they don't have a lot of funding. They haven't had the ability in the last few years to be able to provide report cards and telling communities what's actually happening. So we want to be able to find funding for them and make sure that we're using that information to the best of our ability. Also improving aquatic connectivity. So a lot of communities have identified culverts as a stress point in their community. So these are, you only have such a big opening. And when you have a lot of water coming through there, it can collapse, it can create infrastructure damage. And it also is, a real barrier for aquatic passage as well. So these are some of our priorities. Next slide. So as the collaborative, we began just in September, so we're still pretty new. We meet every month. We're open to everybody. So if you ever want to join and see what we're up to, you're welcome to. It's every third Friday from 10 to 12. We meet virtually. And we have about 200 different individuals representing about 100 different organizations participating in these meetings. Usually on any given meeting, we have about 40 folks. And our goal overall is to implement those 20 different priorities. And we get people together from our wastewater treatment plant operators, our municipal staff and volunteers to, water quality groups. We have the regional planning agencies, state agencies, et cetera. We really are focused on this idea of improving health in the face of unsustainable development and climate change, and particularly looking at it with this lens of equity. So next slide. We know that the water overall in the last 50 years has gotten quite a bit cleaner due in large part to our wastewater treatment plants putting in advanced treatment options. But as our land use changes, and in the next slide, as our impervious surfaces grow, our water quality is decreasing. And we're kind of at this pivot point where if we keep expanding that impervious surface and taking up all of our green space, we really can hurt our water quality going forward. So we need to be careful as we're developing in these next critical times. In the next slide, we'll look at how climate change and development interact. So from climate change, we're seeing increased temperatures, extreme precipitation, and increased drought. And from development, we have these impervious surfaces. So instead of water running into our forests and our wetlands and open spaces and soaking up and providing kind of a base flow to our groundwater supply, it instead is running off of our rooftops and roadways and parking lots, et cetera. It's pulling up all those nutrients. It's pulling up all of the sediments with that going into our waterways. So we have warmer waters, which is particularly challenging for our cold water fisheries. And because of all this extreme precipitation all at once, we have really flashy systems. So it floods in some cases, and then it doesn't have enough base flow. So we actually have drought, drinking water shortages, problems with wells running dry, et cetera. Next slide, please. We know that healthy communities really depend on a healthy watershed, whether it's recreation and tourism, physical and mental health, our built infrastructure. Sorry, I have this cat that's trying to climb onto my keyboard. Our transportation systems, municipal services, and particularly that one of thinking about cost avoidance. So if we have these culverts that flood, right, and our infrastructure is damaged, or someone is stranded during a flood, or has an asthma attack from a heat-induced challenge, then these are municipal services that we're paying for and having to take care of our residents. So those are potentially avoided costs if we can make sure we're keeping our watershed healthy and keeping our temperatures down, managing those flooding issues. We want to also keep in mind throughout all of this, our most vulnerable residents doesn't necessarily just mean mapped environmental justice populations, but in every community, we have some more vulnerable residents, whether it be the elderly or those with children or those with mobility challenges, et cetera. Next slide, please. The Narragansett Bay Estuary Program, who funded the creation of the initial report and the collaborative for its first year, also created this story map, and it looks at how the challenges from climate change are really not felt equitably and how that's exacerbated by these development patterns. So whether we look at areas of high heat islands, of low tree cover, high asthma rates, flooding impacts, low water quality. We see that these same areas are hit again and again. So we really want to be able to take the lens of equity to our technical assistance that we provide as the collaborative and make sure we're assisting those that need it the most. Next slide. I just wanted to highlight this specific assistance program. So I'm here to provide technical assistance with things. I can do things like bylaw review or project feedback, but there's also this larger network that does provide free technical assistance called the Snek Network. It's the Southeast New England Program Network, which is their sort of technical assistance branch from the government. And you can go to their website and request technical assistance on also things like financing and funding. So if you have specific projects, not sure how to get off the ground, they can help you provide or match to funding sources. Next slide, please. So the ZAP 50th anniversary that I mentioned is ongoing this year. There are a couple of different things happening, including this cleanup and green up on August 27th. So if you're interested in volunteering, you can sign up at zaptheblackstone.com. Or if you're interested as a municipality that there are certain areas, maybe the Concom's always noticed that they have trash in this one wetland area, or there's a park that needs restriping, or there's, you want to do, what's it called? Storm drain stenciling in a certain part of town. These are things that you can sign up for and say, hey, we need volunteers in our community on this date. So you can sign up for that. And then we just invite everybody to a celebration on September 10th, more of a festival style with music and food and games and things. Next slide, please. We are working at different scales, whether it be getting people involved in little events happening, or we're working on an urban wetland restoration project in Worcester that enhances flood capacity in an environmental justice neighborhood. I've been part of the MVP teams in Boylston and Millville. I know Grafton was one of the really early ones that went through that. And actually I participated in Grafton's MVP process when I worked at Mass Audubon as one of your technical assistance providers. So I'm definitely familiar. We're trying to get these municipal resolutions passed in support of the needs assessment and the collaborative, just to get the word out about the program. And we're also trying to take these needs that we're hearing from communities and bring them to a higher level to make sure that the needs of the Blackstone are represented in these larger planning documents. So I sit on a technical assistance group with the Regional Planning Commission's Vision 2050 program. Mass Ecosystem Climate Adaptation Network, Mass ECAN's Nature-Based Solutions Work Group. I'm on the working group for the Mass Statewide Climate Change Assessment, which is sort of the new version of their SHMCAP, which is a really great acronym. It's the State Hazard Mitigation and Climate Adaptation Plan. So the state's preparing for that. And also in the Narragansett Bay Estuary Programs Steering Committee. So it's all about partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. Next slide, please. Some of those smaller events that we're planning, this is with the 50th anniversary. We're doing every third Saturday from April to July, little events in different parts of the watershed. So some of them are down in Rhode Island. We have River as Muse, a poetry event and a hike going on April 16th. We're highlighting some existing events happening on May 21st, the First Strike Festival in Pawtucket. I did not know until looking into this that the first labor mill strike in the United States was in the Blackstone Watershed. And it was when 100 women got together and said that they wanted to not have worse pay and worse hours. And they ended up winning that. There were mills set on fire and there was strikes, and it was a really big, interesting movement. So we have a big piece of women's history in this watershed too. There also is the Summer Solstice Festival happening June 18th, which will just be a fun celebration and lots of music. And then a tour of these nature-based solutions that I mentioned earlier. So we want to highlight some of those in Worcester, just upriver from you, looking at how communities can implement some of these stormwater management practices. Next slide, please. This one accidentally, I'm so sorry, it duplicated. Next slide. That's why I was hoping to sneak in sharing my screen to be able to delete that. But thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you tonight and to talk about this resolution. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have for me.
You're muted, Sandy.
You didn't see me mouth, I am muted, and I'm trying to find my button. So I'll go around to the other commissioners first to see if they have any other questions. Patrick
Hey, nothing at the moment.
and Jonathan.
No questions, but that was a very nice presentation. And you don't have to worry about the cat because Sandy has a very famous cat that appears in front of the camera many times during our meetings. So
I don't know where he is at the moment, but I'm sure he'll
Hiding.
make an
Waiting
appearance.
to leap.
Yeah.
My best was when I was doing an EPA like recorded presentation, and we had like 240 participants, and my cat in the middle of it jumps up on my lap and hits me in the face. It's embarrassing. Everyone thought it was funny though, so it was fine.
It's
People
not
laughed.
embarrassing. What are you talking about? Yeah, it's not embarrassing. But yeah. All right, Jonathan, any questions? So I just have a couple of quick ones. Where is your funding come from? I know you're collaborative, but it has to be coming from someplace. Is it state or federal? Where's kind of the money to pay you coming from?
Yeah, good question. So the creation of the document itself, the report, was from SNEP, the Southeast New England program, and they in turn decided it was really important to be able to implement that report as well. And so they provided the first year of pilot sort of funding for the program. So that's EPA money, basically.
Okay.
So we've received additional funding both from SNEP, the Southeast New England program, from NEWIPIC, the New England Interstate Water Pollution Control Commission,
Okay.
from the Snek Network, who's the technical assistance branch, and from Clark University. We're also looking towards additional federal and state funds into the future. There were two really big opportunities that I think we could have gotten funded under that the window of it closed before the collaborative existed, so we weren't able to apply, but we are looking for an additional SNEP funding and additional Division of Ecological Restoration state funding.
Gotcha. Is there any opportunities from the infrastructure bill? I know there's not a lot for resilience.
Yeah, so we know that money's coming into EPA. I have a meeting in another week or so with some of the EPA Region 1 administrators to discuss funding opportunities. We are always looking for that. And we're hoping also that just from municipalities having funding and being able to implement projects, there will be a real need for technical assistance ongoing. So hopefully we'll be able to find funding there too.
Okay. Leah, do you have any questions?
Yeah, you touched on, I think you called it a resolution that you're getting municipalities to pass in support of the document. So is that something that you would be seeking through us, or would we be like endorsing you bringing it to the select board from here for Grafton?
Good question. So we sort of presented it to be able to, do whatever is most useful to the community and whatever made sense to them. So for instance, I asked to be late on the agenda today because I was presenting earlier to the town of Sutton's select board, and they decided they wanted it to go straight to the select board. I made this basically the same presentation, and they voted on it that same night, and they did pass it today. For you, if you want to pass something as the Conservation Commission, you are welcome to. If you would want to provide a recommendation to the select board and say this is important, we would endorse it and we would ask that you review it. You're welcome to do that as well. Whatever works best for you. Really, my goal is all about outreach and engagement and telling you about the program and telling you that I'm here to provide technical assistance. I'd love to be able to do things like write letters of support if you're applying for MVP grants or DER culvert replacement grants, or whatever other help I can provide. So if that's useful just for you, great. If that's useful for you to discuss with the select board or have me present to the select board and you want them to know about it, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, what do you guys think? Which avenue? We've done a letter of support, I believe, in the past that then is part of the package for the select board, if you guys had an appetite for that.
Yeah, I would think that it would be a letter of support to the select board and let them kind of do any sign on, and I don't know, Leah, from a town perspective, if there's any identified, MVP projects that you've, gone after grants for or other things. And if
Not
there's,
at the moment. We missed this last round.
gotcha. But again, it's really just trying to work with the selectmen, and if it's if there's some potential either money or avenues to get some additional assistance and so forth, it'd be worth letting the selectmen know and giving them the opportunity to kind of respond to this and show their support.
And just to clarify, the resolution itself is pretty non-binding. It's not really a lot of teeth. It's just sort of acknowledging the the history of the watershed and the importance of these different action items that we identified, of like land protection and nature-based solutions being in regulations, things like that. The only thing it really says is at the end, we anticipate, as appropriate, to incorporate these needs and goals of the entire watershed as reflected in our own community planning documents, such as open space planning or climate resilience planning. But again, it says like as appropriate, so it's not doesn't come with a lot of teeth.
Right. Step one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Knowledge first.
Yep. So I'll just go around the commission, what folks think about doing a kind of a letter of support, and then recommending the select folks to do the resolution when it gets to them. So Patrick.
Was there specific language to the resolution that we're discussing?
So sorry if you don't have that. Do you want me to email it to you? I think it got emailed quite a while ago, but I can email it again, Ken.
I mean, I don't have any opposition to it, or it seems like a very worthwhile to do. I'm just, before we recommend anything, I would like to see what it says. I think
So I just sent that over. I don't know if you can screen share the document or share it with your colleagues.
Just waiting for it to go through.
Yeah, I know it's slow. I'm also happy to read it if you want. And you're also welcome. This is just a draft, something that we've kind of put together more broadly and provided to communities. We've passed this so far in Millbury and Sutton in Massachusetts, as well as North Smithfield, North Providence, Cumberland, and Burrowville in Rhode Island. And Lincoln.
What I like about it, it's a holistic watershed approach. And because you're getting some money from the feds, it goes across state lines. And typically, there's not a lot of opportunities to do watershed planning, outside your own state, and where this is an opportunity to kind of, be a little bit more holistic. I mean, obviously it's a lot from just a science and engineering and watershed base. It's the way to do things. So.
This was written as a select board, but I'm happy to change it to the commission if you wanted to vote separately, or if you wanted to have it written as select board. If you want to delete certain things that are less important to you, or you think something is really critical and you want to highlight, I think that invasives are in here, but if invasives are important or culvert assessment is important, whatever it is that you think is critical, and is something that's, reflected in the needs assessment, I'm happy to modify this language too.
Yeah. And that's, I guess that's one reason why I was looking to say that we could do a letter of recommendation to the selectmen. I think they probably, and Leah, tell if I'm incorrect, the select board may be a little bit more in touch with some of the infrastructure needs and some of the, kind of overall planning and what's going on with MVP, more so than us sitting on the conservation. Of course, our lens is, very focused on, whether it's, protection of land or wetland restoration. I mean, I think we're a little bit more focused than on maybe some of the other more infrastructure-based things, but kind of Leah,
Yeah.
your take on the whole, like having the selectmen approve, the ones that issue.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was thinking leave the resolution piece to the select board, but I can draft a letter in support of adopting it.
Right.
To go to them along with Stephanie, if you wanted to present again at the select board, and you'd have our letter as an extra push.
Yeah. From, just from the town's perspective and from the commission's perspective, both as the folks who, or the board that actually oversees, obviously the Wetlands Protection Act and our local wetlands bylaw, but we also oversee the stormwater management for the town too.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do. And so those are our concerns, so to me, it would be foolish not to recommend this just because it's an opportunity to be more holistic, look at potential grants and other funding sources for maybe even something that's already been identified in Grafton, or maybe work with an abutting town. But yeah, I think this is fairly straightforward. Yeah, and Leah can write up something and we can take a vote tonight. So as far as that recommendation. So last round, any other questions, Patrick?
Nope. Looks good.
Yep. Jonathan,
No questions.
anything to add, Leah?
Nope.
Jan, you got anything to add?
Nope.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, this is great. Obviously love to see the collaboration and looking at a watershed as opposed to, each watershed in Massachusetts and the 351 towns. It's just a way to go. And I know the state has done a lot, but it's nice to see on this particular river is the fact that you're going over into Rhode Island, which I think is critical. So do I have a motion to, trying to find the words, a motion to endorse this and basically write a letter indicating that to be sent to the selectmen.
A motion that we endorse the resolution and write a letter to the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Patrick?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
I am also a yes. Good luck, Stephanie. I'd be very interested, since stormwater is my life, be very interested in opportunities to help you out.
We should have coffee sometime.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit overtaxed at the moment, but definitely very much interested in it and looking towards the future and resilience and what to do. Yeah.
I was also the conservation agent for the city of Worcester for a few years, so I know how challenging your job is. Very aware.
I thought, because I think when we did the MVP workshop, you presented at that, right?
Yeah, I worked at Mass Audubon before that on the Shaping the Future of Your Community program.
Okay, so that's where I've seen you before and so forth, and probably in Worcester at some point. Sorry, I probably forgot.
No, that's okay. A lot of faces. But I understand your challenges with stormwater for sure. I know that firsthand. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present tonight and for that endorsement. And let me know if there's a specific meeting date that I should look towards, or if you'd like me to follow up with any other information.
Yeah, just reach out to Leah or Jan and so forth, and they'll help you out with that coordination. So,
So much. Have a good night.
yeah, you too.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, Leah, anything left?
Nope.
Outstanding. Motion? We have a
Make a
motion.
motion to close the meeting.
Okay, Jonathan got that one in. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Jonathan.
Yes.
Yep. A little tardy. He's
Oh, there
tardy
you-
tonight. Do I have a
Ready.
second? Yeah, so we have a motion in a second. A roll call vote. Patrick
Yes.
and Jonathan.
Yes.
I am also a yes, which means the meeting is closed.